Diagnose car faults with Carly and you could save money on repair and maintenance costs. Get a 25% discount at mycarly.uk.
What's wrong with the car?
It's okay, lads. I'm with the AA.
Ah,
Bombay mix.
Because the AA has more expert patrols across the country, you'll be back on the road in no time. No wonder more people choose the AA. Join today.
Sofa sale starts now. Long delivery times, no returns, all for a price to make you...
Sofa ads can be intense, can't they?
yes. Sorry? Yeah. Sorting ours was easy.
It was. Guess we should take it easy for the rest of this ad then.
Easy?
Easy.
With free 3 to 5 day delivery, free returns and 0%... Furniture without the fear. Delivered in days. Keep on living with Furniture and Choice. January sale now on.
You could say traders are like music conductors, orchestrating an ensemble of instruments, overseeing every movement, major or minor, staying on tempo with impeccable precision. Greatness requires great tools. It's your show, eToro Trading.
Take my hand. Now feel.
Hello, this is Good Morning Transfers on what could be a very busy day at Tottenham. Timo Werner is in England and having his medical today. The latest on that deal and their attempts to sign Radu Dragusin as Bayern Munich lurk in the background. Anthony Martial, Jadon Sancho, Hannibal Mabry all could leave Manchester United this month. Updates on their futures. We'll hear from Mauricio Pochettino, who reveals he's held discussions with Conor Gallagher over his future at the club. Loads to get through today. So first, we'll have the latest from Tottenham. 9:15 will update you on Chelsea's transfer plan. 9:30, Nottingham Forest and Wolves. Then at 9:45, we'll look at clubs in the relegation zone currently. A very good morning to Sam Abaseki, Dan Bardell and Kwaku Afari, and to those of you watching on the Sky Sports Premier League YouTube channel. We're going to start with an update on Timo Werner. He's in England, he'll have his medical today and complete a 6-month loan move from RB Leipzig to Tottenham. The deal also includes the option to buy in the summer for around £15 million, and Tottenham will pay his salary in full, which is around £4.3 million. Right, Sam, what do you think of this? Good move?
I think it's an all-right move. I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but obviously I watched him quite closely at Chelsea, and I think a lot of Chelsea fans will agree when they say that they backed him and they love that his aggression, the fact that he always worked, his determination as well as a player. But when you look at his goal record and what he's going to come in for, you know, he scored 23 goals in 89 appearances for Chelsea. This season he only has 2 goals in 14 appearances. And I think when you're looking at the contribution that Son has had in that squad, it's going to be quite difficult to replicate that or find a player that would do that. But I think if he is coming in to, you know, replace him for this time period, I think he's gonna struggle a little bit. And I also do think that they've got players that are similar to his mould in Brennan Johnson and Brian Gill, who's getting a lot more minutes in the Spurs squad. I do think, you know, under Ange, it might work a little bit better because of the fast-paced football, and he's obviously got clear confidence in what he can do at Spurs. But I don't know, I've been there before, you know. You've seen what he done at Chelsea, and obviously he was a part of a squad that won the Champions League, and you know a lot of people wanted to be behind him, but it just never really worked out. So going off of that, I'm still unsure.
It's not an emphatic yes there, is it? Is it a good move? Dan, what do you think?
I think there's a tiny part inside of Sam that's a little bit worried, almost doesn't want him to do well because it didn't go perfectly at Chelsea, so he'd almost be reluctant to see him do well at Spurs. I think at this moment in time, I think it's a really good move for the player. I think it's a sensible move from Tottenham on a low-risk 6-month loan. And I think if you look at Werner's body of work and when things went well at Leipzig, he's playing under a manager that's got a defined structure, that the teams that like to press. He played his best football under Nagelsmann. He had successful times at Leipzig under Rangnick and under Hasenhüttl as well. And all those managers kind of come in with the same kind of principles in how they play football. There was very much a Red Bull model, and I don't think the Spurs model is a million miles away from that. And I think when you put him in and amongst the Tottenham attackers that they have there already, if he's lining up with, say, Son and Brennan Johnson, I think that's an interchangeable front three there that will work well for Spurs. I think they're dangerous on the counter anyway. Son has maybe lost a yard of pace over the last year. He's still a very, very effective forward player, but I think he's not as quick as he once was. I think in transition and the way Tottenham build up, I actually think Werner will be a real asset, and as long as they're not having to rely on him as being the only person in the penalty box, because I think that's where maybe it fell down at Chelsea, having to play as that central striker. But I think also at Chelsea, he never got a defined run in the team. He was in and out. Some games he'd be on the left, some games he would be that central striker. So I think he struggled for consistency. It's
going to be similar at Spurs, though, if you think about it. You know, their front line is quite interchangeable. You know, Son's sometimes down the middle, sometimes on the left. Richarlison's down the middle. And I think I hear what you're saying, and I understand how it would make sense in the team, but at the same time I'm just thinking about the output, and you know, Spurs create a lot of chances because they're an attacking team, and I think they might see that he might fall short. Obviously it could be a completely different scenario to what's happening at Leipzig currently, but if you go off of what's happening there, 2 goals in 14 appearances coming into this squad that is creating a lot of chances, just don't see it's still a good move because it's a loan and he's almost got something to prove again, but I don't know if he's going to be able to, you know, replicate that output that he did years ago under Nagelsmann.
Well, what do Tottenham fans think? Let us know. # transfer talk on X. All right, but now to a player that's attracting a lot of interest, Radu Dragusin. Tottenham are close to an agreement with Genoa. Talks are now in an advanced stage over a deal worth around £26 million. However, Bayern Munich are also interested and are speaking to his camp, but they haven't sent a bid as of yet. So as things stand, it would appear that Tottenham are in the driving seat. And by the way, Jed Spence would go the other way on loan. OK, Quaker, we'll get to you in a moment, but Dan, just explain why Tottenham are looking for a centre-back.
Well, they're short anyway, really, aren't they? Eric Dyer hasn't really been an Ange favourite so far this season. Even when they've had injuries, he's not found a place in the team. They've had problems with injuries. Van der Ven's been injured, Romero's been injured and suspended. So they almost need a third centre-half to cover both of those two, because for as long as I can remember this season, it feels like it's been Emerson Royal and Ben Davies at centre-back, and they're quite simply not centre-back. So they probably needed someone in the summer, didn't manage to get another centre-back over the line, were concentrating on other targets. They've identified this player as someone who can come in and compete with the two centre-backs that I've mentioned. So they're short, but it's more about getting a player in that fits what the manager wants to do, and perhaps there was players on the books that could play centre-back that weren't fit for what the manager wants to do. Dragusin would come in and offer that. I think he probably offers a little bit of the traits that Van der Ven offers and a little bit of the traits that Romero offers. So in that essence, he can cover both. So they've just been quite simply short in that area and need someone who can come in and play.
But Kwaku, Tottenham want him, Bayern Munich want him too. Who needs him more?
That's what I'm going to explore now in terms of who needs him more. This is a situation that's contingent, it seems like, on Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer is a player that is of interest to Bayern Munich, and to be honest, both teams are in dire straits when it comes to their centre-back options. You look at it here at Spurs, go through it chronologically. Mickey van der Ven had a great start to his Spurs career, but got injured against Chelsea. Obviously, a defender that exhibits incredible attributes when it comes to physicality, pace, and Spurs really missed him since he went down with that hamstring injury. Christian Romero, again, a great centre-back, a World Cup winner, but perpetually injured and suspended, and Spurs can't really rely on him. The fact that he's only played 11 league games this season for Spurs out of a possible 20 just speaks to how unreliable he's been when it comes to availability. Eric Dyer, like I said, is a man that's been of interest to Bayern Munich. He's surpassed the requirements of Spurs, and we heard Ange talk pretty sharply in the press conference about Eric Dyer and about his future at Spurs. He is injured at the moment, but we do know that Bayern Munich are interested in his services. You look at Ben Davies, a player that he's adapted to playing the centre-back, but he's a left-back by trade. If Spurs were playing a back three, you could understand him playing the left side of a back three. But in terms of a centre-back option long-term, it just doesn't really work for a team that are trying to contend for a place in the Champions League. It's a difficult situation for Spurs. It's Emerson Royal again. You look at a player like that who, again, a year ago seemed surplus to requirements at Spurs and has found himself playing in a position unfamiliar to himself. Again, equipped himself quite well, but he's not necessarily what Spurs need in that position. You can understand why they're after Dragusin. And you look at the numbers of Dragusin compared to the Spurs centre-backs at the moment. He's played 19 games this season, a lot more than the other Spurs centre-backs as well. Started all of those games. And you just look at the numbers when it comes to dual successes. He's a combative midfielder or defender. And when you saw Kevin Hatchard come on the show yesterday, he was waxing lyrical about Dragusin, about the fact that he comes from good sporting stock, the fact that his parents were international Romanian volleyball and basketball players, respectively. And he's a player that Nabade was on the show last week talking about him and comparing him to Van Dijk. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's a centre-back that Spurs desperately need because he's got that physicality. And in a team where these centre-backs have been unreliable for various reasons, you can completely understand why Dragusin is a player that Spurs are very interested in. The problem is, Bayern Munich are also very interested in Dragusin, and they are a European powerhouse. They can probably offer more wages than Spurs, and they're a team that are playing Champions League football already. Dragusin is an experienced centre-back for a player that is only 21 years old. He's a Romanian international, and he did come through the Juve ranks, joined them at 17 years old, despite interest from Chelsea and PSG. So he's a player that a lot of teams are interested in, a lot of teams need, because there seems to be a dearth of quality when it comes to centre-backs in world football. And he's a player that has been schooled in Italy. He knows how to defend, and he's physically imposing. And Bayern Munich are pretty short of options. Like I said, they're in dire straits when it comes to centre-back options. Kim Min-jae has formed a formidable partnership with Upamecano, but Kim Min-jae is away at the Asian Cup this January. He's going to be away for a month. And then you look at Matthijs de Ligt, a player that came in with great promise. Obviously, we all remember him in the 18-19 season for Ajax when they went on a magical run to the Champions League semi-final. But quite like his Ajax teammates, in terms of that team that got to that semi-final, hasn't really worked out for him in the moves that he's made, whether it's been Juventus or Bayern Munich. And he finds himself as a rotational piece as opposed to a starter at Bayern Munich. So you can see that both of these teams are desperately in need for a centre-back. And you can understand why they both want to bring Dragusin in. He's a player, like I say, Kev Hatchard talked really highly about him. And I'll throw it to you guys. Who do you think needs him more? Is it Bayern Munich or is it Spurs?
I actually think it's Bayern Munich, you know. When you look at their current state and the fact that they're still trying to bridge that gap between Leverkusen, who have had an incredible season so far, and the fact that Kim Min-jae, probably Tuchel's #1 option at centre-back, I think him being out and the fact that it's quite clear that De Ligt isn't necessarily the centre-back that Tuchel wants, he needs someone to come straight into the squad and to play to a certain standard. But I think at Spurs, like you said, yes, those players aren't necessarily starters, and Van der Ven and Romero, obviously the clear two favourites. I think Emerson Royal and Davies have done all right when they've been put in. They've still won big games. You know, they've got a point against Manchester City as well. And I think at this current stage, I think Bayern Munich need him more. What do you reckon?
It's a tough one because both teams have different ambitions. Bayern Munich are looking to win their league and win the Champions League as well. You don't invest that amount of money in a player like Harry Kane and not expect to win the biggest trophies. Whereas Spurs at the beginning of the season probably would have aimed for top four. That would have been an ambitious aim. But that's where they're at the moment in terms of if you look at where the league has fallen. So both teams are in desperate need of a centre-back because they're both short of options. And if you're presented with both options as a player that wants to play at the highest level, Bayern Munich are probably that team that can offer you that right now. But again, we've seen how the feelings change around Spurs because of Ange Postecoglou and how people bought into his philosophy. It's a completely different feeling to when Antonio Conte was there, or when Jose Mourinho was there, or when Nuno was there even. And so I think that Spurs would be a good move for him. Obviously, the platform of the Premier League as well can allow you to maybe be seen by more people, and the PR is completely different. So for me, I think Spurs probably need them more. And if you're Spurs, you probably go all out for a player that can solve your problems, because starting players like Ben Davies and Emerson Royal centre-back is not the solution.
Right, so busy at Tottenham. Let's get to Manchester United. Eric Ten Hag was asked last night about the possibility of making signings this month. This is what he had to say.
We consider everything. So what is the best interest of the player, and also the best interest of us for our team and for Manchester United. And so we will see how it progressed during the window.
Sam, I think I know the answer to this, but is there an obvious position that Manchester United need to strengthen?
Yeah, they need a striker, and I think it's been clear. We've been saying it for the last few shows as well, and I think yesterday just proved it even more. And I'm not saying Højlund isn't a striker that isn't going to get better and isn't going to prove his worth, because I honestly think he is, and I think he's got the potential to be a really good striker. But I think the pressure of being that goal scorer, especially when the players around him aren't necessarily performing to the standard that we've seen in the past. You know, with Rashford, he scored so many goals last season. He's only got 3 goals this season. McTominay's on 6 goals. Bruno as well. Højlund's on 6, but only 1 goal in the Premier League. But some of the chances he was missing yesterday, you say to yourself, if that's a player with confidence, he's going to be scoring them. It's almost going to be second instincts. But I think now he's overthinking certain things. We saw the stat previously with the amount of passes that come into him from his wingers. And I just feel like he needs some of that burden taken off of him. And if he's got a striker that comes in that is able to, you know, score a few goals and give him that, shoulder to lean on and say, you know what, we're in this together type of thing. Because I think all of their forwards aren't necessarily performing to that standard. It might just need one player to come in, reignite their fire and say, let's go again, and ease the pressure a little bit. But yeah, I think definitely a striker is needed.
Well, it shows you how difficult it shows you how difficult the striker market is, that Manchester United can go and spend around £70 million on a striker who isn't the finished article, and we're sat here saying he needs support, he needs the burden taken off him. You know, teams at the highest level are struggling to get goal scorers that they are at a premium. Like I say, to spend £70 million on someone who doesn't guarantee you goals, that isn't the finished article, that you're not sure can even get into double figures this season, it just shows you how difficult that market is.
Well, Borussia Dortmund remain in talks with Manchester United over the loan signing of Jadon Sancho. There's a broad agreement on the loan fee. Contract details still need to be finalised. Dan, can you see why Dortmund want him back?
Yeah, I think from a Dortmund perspective, it's very low risk. I think Manchester United will still be paying a huge bulk of Sancho's salary. They're getting a player who's been there before, and actually not only has he been there before, he's performed well under this manager as well. I think he had his best season probably at Dortmund just before he moved to Manchester United, and this manager was the caretaker, Terzic, at the time. So I think, you see the numbers there. This was a player who was offering a lot of productivity in the Bundesliga, and in the big games his stock was very, very high. Like so many players, he's gone to Manchester United and it hasn't worked out. Manchester United has been a little bit of a graveyard for big money signings in recent years. So I feel like Sancho goes back to where he kind of made it, finds himself again. It's going to help the player. It probably helps Dortmund this season with their ambitions, but it helps Manchester United as well because they've not been good at selling players. Players have not held the value. Players have actually lost value since they've joined Manchester United. And since Sancho's a success and still shows that he's a high-level player, whether or not Ten Hag will be there or not, we don't know. But Sancho can go back there in the summer and if it's under someone else, try and make a success of it at Manchester United. If not, Manchester United are going to get a big fee for him and he's going to go somewhere else and show what a good player he is because he is a good player.
Well, Fenerbahce still trying to do a deal to sign the Manchester United forward Anthony Martial. A permanent deal may be out of reach, but a loan has not been ruled out, and Sevilla remain in talks with Manchester United over the signing of midfielder Hannibal Mabry. United triggered the one-year option in Hannibal's contract, meaning his deal runs till the summer of 2025. OK, a reminder, if you're out and about, you can keep across all of the latest deals and transfer stories on our Transfer Centre blog. It's brilliant as well. Just scan the QR code on your screen now, and it'll take you straight there. On the way, Mauricio Pochettino opens up on the future of Conor Gallagher. Plus, there's the latest on Ian Maatsen, who's closing in on a move away from Stamford Bridge. Mauricio Pochettino insists that financial fair play rules are not a concern for Chelsea as they look to bolster their squad this month. The club has spent over £1 billion over 3 transfer windows under Todd Boehly. Pochettino has admitted he wants new signings and says discussions with the owners have been positive.
We have a conversation with the owners and with the sporting director yesterday and today. We are looking like all the team for options, for opportunities. But I am so happy because we have Broja, we have different players, Palmer, that can play in the striker position. I think everything is going well, and of course, normal conversation that we need to have, and if we decide something, we will announce as soon as possible.
Is it true that you'll need to sell before you bring in because of financial fair play regulations?
No, it's not like this. But look, too many rumors with different, things that can go in around the clubs. But I think it's not what they translate to me. It's not necessary to sell if we want to buy some player.
A few Chelsea fans have already got in touch, actually, using the hashtag transfer talk. Keep those coming in. But hearing the financial fair play situation there from Mauricio Pochettino, Sam, how will that what will the fans think of that?
I think they'll be happy to hear it because obviously they'll be thinking the amount of money that's been spent on the players that have come in over the last few windows and, hearing potentially losing their captain and things like that. I think that probably puts their mind at rest, and then it puts them into another space where they can think that they could spend another 100 million to get in another striker, because obviously he's mentioned the fact of, Jackson's going off to the African Cup of Nations and a need for a striker. But I personally think that in this current state, doesn't necessarily need to be a move to be forced for a striker, especially at the fact that when we look at the market, it's very unlikely for a top club or a striker that's in form to leave to come to Chelsea, and you disagree with
Sam,
me.
come on, because I don't know how you can say in the previous part that Manchester United need to bring in the striker and that Chelsea don't need to bring in the striker. It's been evident what Chelsea's issues have been since Diego Costa left, for the last 6 years. It's putting the ball in the back of the net, and to win anything of significance in this country, you need to have a striker that can score goals and put the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis, but Chelsea can't do that. And so to not think that Chelsea need to go in for a striker, I think is foolhardy.
I think what? That was aggressive. No, I'm just saying at this current stage, because when you look at the January transfer market, it's very unlikely for these top clubs to get rid of their main strikers. All of them want to achieve something, especially in Germany, in the top leagues. It's either Champions League football or they're pushing to win the title. And when you look at Chelsea's current state, you've got Broja, who scored on the weekend, someone that Pochettino believes in heavily and says that obviously he's come back from an injury and that he needs time to build up his body again and the confidence. And then you look at other players that are strikers. Washington, very young, a part of Chelsea's future. Fofana, who was on loan, who hasn't been able to really stake a claim at his other team, and now he's been linked with other teams. You can't just keep on bringing in players and expecting them all to be able to flourish in that side. You need to, show the belief, which Pochettino is doing with Broja, and saying, you know what, we back you to be a quality striker for this club, the same way you did with Jackson. And yes, you might not be the finished article, but that's where the other players come in, the Sterlings, Maduekes, the Mudriks as well, to contribute to those goals, rather than always seeing an issue and then saying, OK, we've got to go to the market and we have to sign this player.
Ultimately, though, it will cost Pochettino big time. I'm not saying it's going to cost him his job, but if Chelsea continue to play the way they do in terms of creating chances and opportunities and not putting the ball in the back of the net, eventually something has to give. And we've seen it with Chelsea, not just in the previous ownership regime, with this ownership regime, where if a manager's not getting results and results are predicated on your team scoring goals, then it's going to be a problem for Poch. And that's why he's saying we can go again. And that's why he's saying that we can spend money, because he knows what the issue is. Putting the ball in the back of the net is a clear issue for Chelsea, and it hasn't been addressed for the last 6 years.
I feel like I'm in the middle of a very angry Chelsea sandwich.
I once described him as a sweet boy with an aggressive streak, and he got aggressive without me saying he had an aggressive streak. You're all seeing it now. You're seeing the real Sam.
This is calm.
I'm worried that Kwaku might call me foolhardy. We've just been talking about Manchester United and Højlund for 70 million, spending 70 million on someone who's not the finished article. I know you said earlier, I'm not a scout. Yeah. Where are Chelsea getting this striker from? Where do you think they can go to get the striker that you're talking about? I don't think it's there.
Again, with Chelsea, I've seen it so many times that Chelsea have gone and got the biggest name to try and fill that void. If you look at Chelsea off the back of winning the Champions League a few years ago, bringing in Lukaku because they thought that would be the perfect fit, and it didn't work. If you go and get I'm not a scout, like you said. If you go and get somebody that I don't know about but can go and fulfil a role, the same way that Liverpool go and do their business. We did know about Mo Salah, but not to the extent that he came to score goals at Liverpool. We knew about Sadio Mane's exploits at Southampton, but it wasn't a case everybody was running to go grab them. I expect Chelsea's recruitment team, who've been revamped and brought in a whole new recruitment team, that did so well at Brighton. I expect Chelsea to go and find somebody to go and score those goals.
Those players you've just mentioned, they're going into a stable environment in Liverpool, who are probably further ahead in the journey than Chelsea are now. If you're just throwing another striker, another forward player into the mix of an environment, let's be honest, he's in a stable environment at the moment.
Question?
Yeah.
Is Nicholas Jackson, do you think he's good enough to get Chelsea to where they want to get to?
Where do Chelsea want to get to?
Back into the top 4 minimum.
I don't think he's good enough right now, but I also just think you can't just keep throwing money and bringing in player after player after player. Maybe Jackson's one of those strikers that ends up being more of a facilitator, like Sam said, for other players to score goals. Cole Palmer, Sterling, the players that Sam mentioned. There's goals in that Chelsea team.
And Kunku as well.
And Kunku's still not really at full fitness. I think he's probably Chelsea's main goal scorer.
And that's the thing, when you look at the squad, you can say that there are goals in that squad, and yes, you've seen the list of how many chances are created in the Premier League, and Chelsea are up there. So it might be a confidence thing. It might just be a thing that these players, there's some injuries, there's not really been cohesion to a certain extent. But I think it will come, and I think if you keep on looking at every transfer window and expecting there to be that sign-in to change the destiny of your squad, it's just going to keep on going. There's players that have come in. We've talked about how much money Chelsea has spent, and I think you just need to look at a window and just be calm for once and go with the squad.
A lot of the messages we're getting in from Chelsea fans are all mentioning Lautaro Martinez as being that striker, but you would imagine that would be more likely
leave in January.
Summer rather than January. Well, what about Conor Gallagher? Mauricio Pochettino was asked about his future yesterday. Now, this is what he said. I've got the quotes here. I think always it's important for us, the coaches, to have a clear and very direct, honest conversations with the players. It's healthy to have these types of relationships. We are talking all different subjects. If we have something to communicate, then we will. What do you all take from those quotes?
It's interesting, and this Conor Gallagher situation is emblematic of the issue at Chelsea at the moment. A manager like Mauricio Pochettino needs autonomy to be able to do his job successfully. And you look at why it didn't go well for him at PSG, it's because it's a club that was run by the superstar players at the time. This is a Chelsea ownership group. They've got their own ideas, and it's fair enough, they own the football club. But Pochettino needs to be able to implement what he wants to do, and it's clear by giving Conor Gallagher the armband whenever he's been available that he values the player massively. So to hear conversations or Conor Gallagher being linked with moves away to potentially Chelsea's rivals in the Premier League can't be great for Pochettino. Those quotes might be a bit cryptic, but I think he's sending the message to the people that employ him that Conor Gallagher is a player that he wants to keep at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, and I think, like Koiku said, he loves Conor Gallagher. And I think every manager has that one player on the pitch that epitomises everything that they want from the team. And I think Conor Gallagher is that player for Pochettino, in terms of the intensity, the drive, and how he brings the team together. Every time Gallagher plays, everyone is saying the amount of balls that he wins back, the amount of chances that he creates as well. We've seen his development, and even with the armband, we've seen his growth as well. And I think the only thing that could be a difference is like what you're saying with what the owners have for the future and what they're planning. I don't think Gallagher was necessarily a part of that, but they've seen the development, and Pochettino is talking so proudly of Gallagher's development, but at the same time, when we talk about the amount of players, there's a lot of players in that midfield, and they're probably thinking, who can we get that, or who can we sell that will be of value and still keep the team at a good current state? And I think that Gallagher's probably one of those players. It's not something that would be nice for him to hear or Chelsea fans, but you also got to see it from that perspective as well.
It'd be ludicrous to get rid of Gallagher. He's captained the team more times than not this season. Like you say, the manager clearly rates him. If he ends up leaving, that just says to me, Chelsea are not aligned with the manager and the hierarchy. Nothing would be aligned at all. I think the only reason we talk about him being one of the midfielders they could sell because they're well stocked is because he's the only one that's not new. Everyone else is new, aren't they? So they're not going to be selling anyone else that is there. But Gallagher is picked every week. If he goes, I think that would be a travesty for Chelsea fans.
Well, we are just getting some fresh information on the future of Ian Matson. He's expected to have a medical tomorrow ahead of moving on loan to Borussia Dortmund. Our information is that Dortmund are expected to cover his full salary. It's thought a straight loan could help increase his market value in the summer if he performs well in Germany. That information just in to us. Right, coming up, we'll have the latest from Wolves. Will they bring in a striker this month? It's time for 5 teams, 5 minutes. It is exactly that. And these are the 5 teams we're going to be discussing. We've brought some championship clubs in as well, because there's plenty going on at Hull and Plymouth. But we start, Dan Bardell, now with Aston Villa.
Yeah, I don't think Villa are going to be massively active in this window unless an opportunity rises on loan. Maybe a clever loan would come in. I think Villa are pretty well stocked. Being linked with Peterborough's Ronnie Edwards, a player who feels like he's been around for a while, got a lot of first-team appearances under his belt. Not really the kind of signing that Villa have done over the last few years. I think if he did come in, it would potentially be one where they bought him and then sent him back where he's come from on loan. But as I say, I just don't think that Villa are going to be active. Second in the league at the moment, decent squad depth, going really, really well under Unai Emery. Emery showed last January window that he won't be rushed into making panic signings or signings that he doesn't think will improve the side. So I think it'll be a quiet one at Villa Park.
Kwaku, will it be a quiet one at Crystal Palace, Selhurst Park?
Yeah, it does. It looks like it's going to be that. Roy Hodgson's thought to be looking at a new right back and central midfield as well. The injury to Cheikh Doucouré has been a big one. Ruptured his Achilles and missed the last few games. He's going to be out for a while. Joel Ward's also missed time as well. So a centre midfielder and a right back. Also been linked with Luton's Tedder Menji, who's impressed this season as a centre back. Obviously got his education at Manchester United. Moved to Luton in the summer and has played very, very well, and has been key in the Luton side that have showed promise this season. So for Palace, it's going to be a quiet window unless something becomes glaringly obvious and available. But right back and centre back are the positions they're looking for.
Right, we've got lots of our 5 minutes left here because those two are going to have quiet windows. What about Brighton, Sam?
Well, they're actually quite open to having an active window. Tony Bloom and De Zerbi have spoke about, you know, their injuries and the fact that they'll be open to making a few signings. They've been heavily linked with Boca Junior left back Valentin Barco, 19 years old. He plays left back, but he can also play left mid. And I've seen a lot of raving reports on social media that Argentina fans love him, Boca Junior fans love him, and they're actually saying that if they're able to get him, that this will be another one of those Brighton signings that they get under the radar, that is almost preparing for Estepunian. Oh my God. That's how you say it. I knew that was going to be a problem. But if he's going to go elsewhere in the summer, they've got their perfect replacement. They're also looking for a centre-back and a centre midfield player, but they haven't been heavy links with any other player, but they do want experience in those areas because of those injuries.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Barco, we were actually talking about him last week with Tim Vickery. He's coming up in transfer talk from midday today. As for Pervis Estepunian, his brother Oscar plays for Hull, and that's who we're talking about next, Kwaku.
Yeah, just outside the playoff places in 7th. Liam Rossini's got them flying at the moment. They wasted no time in January getting their business done. They brought in Billy Sharp on the first day of the month. Of course, we know where Billy Sharp is at this point of his career. He's not necessarily a spring chicken, but he's going to bring that experience into that dressing room for a Hull side that are going to be pushing for promotion this season. Hull owners basically confirmed that Fabio Carvalho, the move is close to being completed. The loan move from Liverpool, obviously he's been at Leipzig this season, and we know how good Fabio Carvalho is. There's a host of Premier League clubs that would love to have him, and the fact that Hull are close to securing his signature is absolutely massive. They're a club that's suffering from injuries. Liam Delap, who's on loan from Man City, is injured. He contributed to 7 goals and 2 assists this season in the Championship, and so you can understand why they want to bring in an attacking midfield or somebody that occupies that space, because they are going well, and bringing in the right signing in January can help them push for promotion, which would be a great achievement for Hull and Rossini.
Yeah, and Hull fans, I do know Oscar Estepunian is currently out on loan, by the way. I know that before you start at me. Right, and we go to Plymouth as well. Lots going on at Plymouth, Dan.
Yeah, been a real turbulent time for Plymouth. Obviously, they've lost their manager recently in Schumacher, and they've got Ian Foster, who's left Steven Gerrard behind in Saudi Arabia to come and take that job. The problem for Plymouth is at the moment they're 18th in the league, just lost their manager, but they're kind of flirting with the relegation zone, and they've lost a couple of real key players in the midfield area. Finn Azaz, who was on loan from Aston Villa, has ended up being recalled and going to Middlesbrough on a permanent for around $2.5 million, and Wolves have recalled Luke Kundle as well, so that's a lot of productivity from that midfield that's gone in the last week or so. So Plymouth will have to try and be creative in the transfer market. Obviously, you can see that they used the loan market really well at the start of the season, but have almost been punished for that now by players being taken away for them, and they're probably going to have to go and do the same thing again. But Plymouth's budget, even probably the teams in the Championship that don't have massive budgets, have probably got grander budgets than Plymouth, so it's a really difficult time for them. And what was a positive start to the season, they're now at the point where it could go either way depending on how they act in January, and I think they'll have to act fast.
That was 5 in just under 5, which is good news. It's time to discuss the latest from the Midlands now. I know that we've just done Aston Villa there, but it could be a busy month for Nuno Espirito Santo in his first window at Nottingham Forest since taking over from Steve Cooper. Our reporter Daniel Kahn is joining us in the studio, who covers the Midlands. Right, Dan, great to see you here on Good Morning Transfers. How busy do you expect Nottingham Forest to be?
Nottingham Forest, Tom, really interesting, right? Because we talk a lot about AFCON and the Asian Cup, how Premier League clubs will be affected this month by those competitions. Nottingham Forest will be one of the most affected across the league. 6 players will be at AFCON, most of those in defence when you think of Willy Bolly, Moussa Niakate, Serge Aurier and Ola Aina. The good news for Nuno Espirito Santo is he has a big squad, so they won't need any immediate arrivals to cover those departures at AFCON, I should say. So I think really we know from his work at Wolves he likes a tight squad, he likes a small squad. So really in January I think we'd be expecting more outgoings than incomings at the City Ground.
OK, so more outgoings. Who could be on the move?
Well, we've already seen Nottingham Forest and the loan of Andrei Santos at Chelsea. We know the centre-back Scott McKenna as well. He's attracting interest in Scotland. Rangers and Celtic are interested in him. So those are ones to watch. But again, we mentioned AFCON. With this FA Cup replay against Blackpool next week, you just wonder whether Forest will hold off a little bit towards the end of the window just to cover off those AFCON departures, just to make sure they have enough players in the squad.
Now, if he does want to bring players in, do you expect him to be backed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, though, as I mentioned, he'll want to trim the squad to what he wants first. And in terms of being backed, I think before we even talk about the summer, Tom, they signed a number of players last summer that we've not really seen consistently yet. Nicolas Dominguez, he has a few goals this season, scored against Blackpool in the FA Cup over the weekend. Looks a real good player. Not seen him too much yet. Divock Origi as well. Taiwo Awoniyi, we've not seen since November. He was their top scorer last year. So they have a number of players who could make an impact on those summer plans. But as you mentioned, I do expect Forest to back him to bring in a few players they want in the summer. But I don't think we'll see the number of arrivals we've seen in the last few years.
Yeah, Awoniyi's injury did cause them some problems, didn't they? Of course, Nuno Espirito Santo used to manage Wolves. It's now Gary O'Neill who's doing a great job. But it looks like he's another manager after a striker.
Absolutely, and I think underrated their festive period. 9 points out of 9 against Chelsea, Brentford and Everton. You mentioned the striker. Well, you know, he does want a strike, especially with the players who've left the club in January. Fabio Silva, Sasha Kalicic leaving on loan. So there's definitely a need there. Hwang Hee-chan, their top scorer, 10 goals in 20 games, Tom. Really impressive this season. Well, he's at the Asian Cup for South Korea. So they do want a striker. Danny Ings is on the potential list that they're looking at. Any signing would be on loan as well with FFP, etc. Danny Ings, interesting player, though, because he's only played 10 times this season. But actually, when you look at those stats, he might not have any goals, but he's not played more than 45 minutes in those games. This is a player who has 70 Premier League goals of his career. The question with him will be, will West Ham let him go? They have a few injuries up front with Lucas Paqueta, Mikel Antonio and Jared Bowen as well. So, again, maybe one to watch out as the window progresses and how those injuries go.
See, Kalajdzic is gone, as you said. Fabio Silva's gone. Might they need to actually get rid of more?
That is the question I think a lot of the Wolves fans have been asking this window. We knew last summer FFP was a big issue. They had to make £100 million worth of profit, and we saw that with Mateus Nunes, Ruben Neves and Nathan Collins. The good news for Wolves fans is they won't be forced into any major sales this window, and I think if they can continue their impressive season under Gary O'Neill, you'd expect them to be able to back him in the summer and be in a much more they should be in a much stronger position, I should say, in the summer to back him.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Daniel. Thank you. Right, on the way, our Premier League selector returns. Which club will it throw up today? Plus, will we see Kylian Mbappe in the Premier League? pull the lever, and here we go. Yesterday, it was Liverpool. OK, the team don't know who this is going to be. Yeah. Stick of that badge, right? OK, which one of you wants to explain to the viewers what Newcastle are after this month?
I can do it, Tom. Won't you be wearing that badge tomorrow, perhaps?
Nope.
Sorry, I thought you were. Newcastle, look, Newcastle fans know that Keith Downey will be all over everything that's going on with their club at the moment. Probably not as busy a transfer window as Newcastle have had previously, from our information, but if a couple of positions arise, they might look to do something. They've got Nick Pope, who's going to be out till April, so they may look at a goalkeeper if anything crops up, but Dubravka's form's actually been pretty good, and they're only in 2 competitions, so there'd probably be Newcastle fans that would argue that they don't need a goalkeeper at this current time. And then the big one with Tonali's obviously going to be missing for the whole season. He's defensive midfield, and there is what feels out there the most sensible transfer across the entirety of the Premier League.
Go on, what is it?
Is Calvin Phillips from Man City to Newcastle on a loan for the rest of the season that would really benefit Newcastle and really benefit the player as well. But I think Newcastle will only do that if the finances are right, and if rumours are to be believed, there might be a little bit of a difference between Manchester City's valuation and Newcastle's valuation. So, what are you laughing at?
I thought you were going to say Jordan Henderson. I was about to look at Tom's reaction.
No, you don't start that one. You already my bad books from bringing that one up yesterday. Well, we actually spoke to Steve Bruce yesterday on the retrospective podcast about the possibility of Calvin Phillips joining Newcastle. This is what he told Tim Thornton and Rob Jones.
The kid's a really, really talented player. Does that mean then Bruno Guimaraes would play as an 8? That's a question that you would have to ask Eddie, because of what I've seen at the weekend, Guimaraes was head and shoulders above anybody on the pitch. There's no doubt Phillips will improve any squad because of what he is. He's young, tenacious, and as we've seen for Leeds in England, it hasn't quite happened for him at Man City for whatever reason. I have to say he's got Rodri in front of him. For me, he's arguably as good as midfield player there is in the league. So all of them questions you weigh up before you dive in to get him. And I'm sure that's the big question. Can I play Guimaraes in an 8 and bring Calvin Phillips in?
Premier League selector will be back tomorrow. Now, report emerged in France yesterday regarding Kylian Mbappe. Media organisation RMC Sport are quoting Mbappe's camp, saying talk of any agreement being reached on the player's future is incorrect. Right, Sam, what can you actually see happening here?
Nothing. I don't think anything is going to happen in January. I think that's what they're trying to reiterate. Even though we see all the tweets, we see all the journalists saying things are moving, I just don't think that anything is going to happen. Even a pre-contract, that is the possibility, obviously, because of his contract. Don't think he wants to leave anything up in the air. He wants to focus on PSG, progressing in the Champions League and winning another league title. And I think he said it before, he's left it. The relationship is in a good space. Even if he was to leave, he feels like they'll be good financially as well. And I think that's where he wants to leave it. And I've said to multiple people, I'm not going to believe any transfer until I see him walking out of the Bernabeu in that shirt and knowing that it is actually him. Because we've seen every type of tweet, every type of announcement around this transfer, and nothing has happened since. So, I don't think anything's going to happen in this month.
I do think the reason why people are so interested in this transfer is because it could set a precedent. We've never seen a player of this quality, arguably the best player in the world, potentially being able to leave his club in his prime on a free. And not just any club, a club that he's from Paris. And so I think that there's a lot of people looking at this, maybe some top players, and in terms of the way they negotiate the contracts, in terms of the way they go about business. And that's why I think everybody's talking about it, because the idea and the notion of Kylian Mbappe going to Real Madrid, obviously there's going to be fees involved in terms of signing non-bonuses and stuff, but in terms of a transfer fee, there won't be one if he leaves in the summer. So I think that's why we are talking about it a lot, because it's such an interesting and unique situation.
I'm a bit bored of Mbappe. We spent all summer talking about...
You're talking about the show. You're part of it.
Absolutely love the show. My favourite thing to do, as you know, Tom. But, Mbappe now, every window, it feels like he's going to go. Every window he signs a 1 or 2 year extension to his contract and ends up staying at PSG. But to give him his credit, he's obviously not motivated by money, because he could have gone to Saudi Arabia for, a figure that dwarfs even the money he'll be on at PSG. I do think he'll go to Real Madrid in the summer. on a free, but again, it will be for less money probably than he's on at PSG, because Real Madrid have kind of changed their ethos and the way they're going about buying players now, so they won't break the bank for a Galactico now. It's not what they'll do, but I do think Mbappe will end up there in the summer, but I don't envisage anything happening in January with him.
I keep seeing links to him moving to the Premier League and things. I just don't think that that's like a possibility. No matter what I see, I know that he's quoted to have liked the way Liverpool play and Jurgen Klopp, and obviously the idea of him playing with Haaland or even just playing in the Premier League is incredible, but he's got his eyes set on Real Madrid. I think it's very known. We've seen the posters behind Cristiano Ronaldo. I feel like it's just the perfect timing that he's waiting for. I think he was very close last time and he almost went, and I understand why you're bored, because it is become that type of transfer. But I still think when it does eventually happen, we're still going to be here excited. The possibility of him playing with Jude Bellingham and who else comes in that window.
Is there any Premier League club, Dan, who you could feasibly see him at? Where could he fit? I don't mean as a player. I guess I mean the finances.
Don't say Villa.
Not Villa. Maybe, Villa qualify for the Champions League. Maybe, Sam. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'd love to see him in the Premier League because he's the most exciting footballer to watch in world football right now. He's absolutely electric, but I just think he himself is set on Real Madrid. Maybe in years gone by, Chelsea would have been able to attract him, lads, but they're nothing more than a mid-table side nowadays, so they probably wouldn't be able to attract Kylian Mbappe without Champions League football. So you made your joke about Villa, but actually Villa have probably got more chance of getting him than Chelsea.
Fair enough.
Right, that'll do for today. Good morning, well, not for today, for this morning. Good Morning Transfers is back at the same time tomorrow morning, 10 a.m, 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. every day of the window, every weekday. Then we're back in Transfer Talk here at midday. South American football expert Tim Vickery's on the show, and the Transfer Show tonight is on at the usual times of 5 p.m. and at 7 p.m. But the football show is next. They'll be building up to the Chelsea semi-final clash against Middlesbrough in the League Cup.